Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular session of the Berlin Mayor and Council meeting. Monday, December 11th, 2023. We're a little behind schedule, but thank you for staying with us. Please join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda is the approval of the consent agenda. Motion to approve. I have a motion to approve by Councilmember Ward. A second by Councilmember Nero. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that the consent agenda passes unanimously with all members present except for Vice President Dean Burrell. Wow. And Vice President Burrell is recovering from his surgery that he announced previously. So let's keep him in our thoughts and prayers for a swift recovery. Up next is agenda item number 2. We're going to 2A begin with our FY23 draft audit presentation by PKS and Company. We'll have Michael, Leslie, and Alyssa from PKS join us if you don't mind up front. Michael, you don't want to join us this year? Okay, all right. Well, it's a pleasure to see all three of you, and it's a pleasure to have both of you at the table.
Well, thanks for inviting us tonight. So previously we've done an audit of the financial statements of the town for the year ended June 30th, 2023. And we discussed it in detail with the town manager and the finance director. So our purpose tonight is just to do a formal presentation and cover some of the highlights of the report. So the main objective of an audit is for us to express an opinion on the town's financial statements as to whether they're a fair and accurate presentation of the financial position of the town and whether or not they're in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We base that opinion on a variety of tests. We look at a lot of documents, invoices, we read the minutes, we look at bank statements, we look at loan documents. We make a lot of inquiries of your staff. We do analytical and ratio testing, and then we confirm some information with external sources, such as your attorney, the bank, or the lending agencies. So based on our audit procedures, our opinion is a clean or unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can give on the financial statements. And the actual opinion, I think if we can move to the first slide, is up on the screen here. In addition, under government auditing standards, we have to look at two additional things. So we look at the town's compliance, whether or not the town has complied with applicable laws, regulations, grant agreements. We don't express an opinion on that, but if there's any instances that we note that where the town is not in compliance, we are required to report those. So the good news is we did not identify any non-compliance issues during the course of our audit. The second thing that we look at is the town's internal accounting procedures and controls. Again, we don't express an opinion on it, but if we find any weaknesses in the controls, we are required to report those. And the news is good. We did not identify any material weaknesses in your internal accounting procedures and controls. And actually this year, we had to do a third audit opinion, or audit report. Whenever the town expends more than $750,000 in federal grant monies, we have to do what's called a uniform guidance or a single audit. And that requires us to do additional testing where we test whether or not the town has controls over the federal grant money and whether or not they're in compliance with the specific grant requirements. So during this fiscal year, the town spent $1.4 million of the American Rescue Act money, or ARPA money, which required us to do a uniform guidance audit. And we do express an opinion on whether or not the town is in compliance. And again, our opinion was a clean, unqualified opinion. The town is in compliance with all those grant requirements. So that's all good news. So move on to the town's general fund and look at some of the financial results. So for the year ended June 30, 2023, the town had $2,093,000 the town had $8,732,000 of revenues, had expenditures of $6,638,000 for revenues over expenses of $2,093,000. Had a little bit of money from the sale of some assets, so the town's general fund balance increased for the year by $2,133,000. If we look at that in comparison to your budget, the town's revenues, there's a favorable variance between the actual and budgeted revenues of $366,000, and there was also a favorable variance with the expenses. Your expenses were $1.9 million under the budget, and that was really due to the timing of some of your capital expenditures. You had budgeted some capital expenditures that didn't happen during the year, so that's why there was such a large variance there. The general fund balance at the end of the year was $9,981,000, and we have to break the general fund balance into categories based on how spendable that money is. So at the end of the year, you had non-spendable fund balance of $1.1 million, which is amounts that some of your utility funds owe the general fund, so it's not a spendable asset. You did have some restricted fund balance from your slots revenue of $447,000, because you're restricted in what you can spend that money on. Committed fund balances are really internal, in accordance with internal regulations, and so you set aside $1.5 million as committed for disaster recovery, debt service, and then accumulated impact fees that you cannot spend. Assigned fund balances are 3.5 million, and those are which the mayor and council have designated for the community center, police forfeiture money, stabilization reserve, and capital reserve. So after all that, that leaves you with an unassigned or spendable fund balance of $3,279,000. The unassigned fund balance represents about 5 months of operating expenses.
I'd like to pause there for just a moment. I mean, the mayor and council, along with our staff and the finance department and the town administrator, I recall not too many presentations ago when we didn't have a large number of these funds, yet alone established or funded, such as disaster recovery, debt service, the stabilization or the capital reserves. So I think that just from a fiscal planning standpoint and a preparedness standpoint, the town's much better off, and I do want to thank my colleagues for their support on that. So, thank you.
Well, you'll see on this next graph shows your fund balance over a period of 6 years, and you can see how it's increased over the last couple of years. That little red portion of the fund balance, the red portion, is your committed fund balance. So that's some of the new reserves that you've established. So you can see where they've kind of popped up there, that final year. So the general fund, this graph kind of shows where did your money come from. Total revenues for the year were 8.7 million. The largest source of revenue is property taxes, which is 4.5 million or 51% of your general revenues. Other significant sources of revenues are intergovernmental or grant revenues of 1.7, almost 1.8 million, which is 21% of your general fund revenues. If we compare revenues this year to last year, you actually had an increase in revenues of just over $1 million. So then this graph shows where your money went. Of your total expenditures of 6.6 million, the largest area of expenditures is public safety, which makes up 39% of your expenditures, total general fund expenditures. General government or administration represents 23%, and then public works is about 16% of your total expenditures.
I'd like to pause there just for a moment. We were at a meeting not too long ago with LDC, and the topic came up about how much funding goes to public safety. So when we look at public safety expenditures, it's almost 40% of what we spend our general fund revenues on. So thank you.
Okay.
So I'm going to continue on with the enterprise funds. So you have 4 enterprise funds: electric, water, sewer, and stormwater. And they're all intended to run like a for-profit business. So they're funded by user charges, and then your revenues are set to cover the cost of the utility expenses. So I'm going to go through one at a time. The first one is going to be the electric fund. You'll see your segment of activities for the electric fund for fiscal year 2023. The electric fund had operating income of $112,000 at the end of fiscal year 2023, compared to operating income in fiscal year 2022 of $317,000. Your service charges increased about $468,000 compared to last year, or a 9% increase. And your expenses for the electric fund increased to about $72,000, which is mostly due to an increase in payroll-related costs. The next one is your water fund. So the water fund ended with a net operating loss of $49,000, which did go down from last year's operating loss, so you're moving in the right direction there. Your service charges increased by 1%, and then your expenses increased by 6%, which is mainly due to an increase in the supplies, which you've seen across the board there. You will see underneath the non-operating revenue section that large $1.3 million is made up of capital grants and the new capital service fee, which was implemented on 9/1/2022 of this fiscal year. So that's something new there. And the capital grants is mostly related to that ARPA monies of $1.2 million, which you recognize this year. And then you collected $172,000 of special connection fees related to the water fund, which are restricted for capital projects and the repayment of debt. So at the end of the year, the water fund ended with an increase in that position of $1.5 million.
Okay, can I ask a question? So the capital, for the water fund capital grants and service fees, did you say that the 1.2 million was the ARPA?
Yes, it was recognized this year for the ARPA.
Okay, so then the 97,000 is service fees?
$113,000 is related to capital service fees for the water fund.
Okay.
So the new fee that was passed in September generated $113,000 in
Yeah.
the fiscal year, not a full fiscal year.
Not a full fiscal year, yeah. The next is the sewer fund. The sewer fund ended the year with an operating income of about $748,000 compared to an operating income of last year of $741,000. So a slight increase there. Your operating revenues increased $205,000, about 5%, was related to the service charges increase and an increase in your hauler fees as well. Your operating expenses increased $198,000, mainly due to increase in payroll-related costs and repairs and maintenance and general overhead. And then you'll see again, underneath the non-operating revenue section, a new line there, capital grants and service fees. So this About 30,000 of this was related to ARPA money grants, and then 317,000 was actually related to capital service fees from the sewer fund. And then in fiscal year 2023, collected $259,000 in special connection fees. And the sewer fund ended the year with an increase in that position of $1.2 million. Lastly, your stormwater fund. This had an operating income of just over $10,000 compared to a loss last year of $89,000. So once again, moving in the right direction there. And again, you'll see that capital grants line, which is also related to ARPA monies recognized in the current year. And you ended the year in the stormwater fund with an increase in that position of $89,000.
Before we move on from there, this is the first year in how long?
Is
it the first year ever?
I believe so.
Natalie? I think we've had a few years where we haven't been negative, but it's been a very long time.
We had a negative when we had actual transfers from general fund. So general fund
That's-
supported
okay.
it, but that would be the first year where the stormwater operated on its own, was the smallest one.
Since its inception in,
10 years ago?
so the first time that the stormwater fund has had a positive,
Without help from the general.
It's like a baby like taking its first step.
It took 10 years to walk.
well, it's a little delayed, but, so thank you.
So here you'll see just a summary of your total enterprise fund net position as of 6/30/2023. So the enterprise funds ended with a total net position of just over $31 million. About $23 million of this is invested in your capital assets, net of any debt related to that. And then just over $1.2 million is related to your special connection fees and EDUs, which are restricted monies. And then leaving you with an unrestricted net position in the enterprise fund of $6.5 million. And then you'll see below the amounts due to the general fund from the sewer fund are $986,000, and then from the stormwater fund are $163,000, which were reduced this year by the budgeted repayment amounts.
And thank you to our finance director for moving those budgeted repayment amounts into our budget, and then also keeping a very close eye on what transfers the funds can actually afford. So thank you.
So technically, stormwater have operating income of 20,000, 10,000 we kick back to general fund, so that's a
Okay,
good plus.
Thank
able
you.
to pay their own bills now. That's
Yep.
that's good stuff.
But it wasn't magic. Let's just make sure that we.
Oh, we know it's not
Right, it wasn't magic. It took a while to get there, and it took adjusting those fees to really, I think, Alyssa, you said in the beginning that the enterprise funds really need to be able to handle their own. And this is the first time that this fund has been able to do that because of those adjustment to fees. So thank you.
So here you'll see a breakdown of your enterprise funds working capital for fiscal year 2023. And working capital is just your current assets less your current liabilities, which indicates how liquid or spendable your portion of the enterprise fund capital is. So at the end of the year, you guys are well over what the GFOA recommends of not less than 45 days. So you can see here you're well above that threshold. So in conclusion, we just want to thank Natalie and all the staff at the town for putting up with us. You know, we request a lot of stuff from you guys, and you're very responsive and cooperative, so we appreciate that. The town is in a healthy financial position, and the books and records are in good order, so we appreciate.
That's worth repeating again.
Yeah, I was about to say, absolutely.
I will if you want me to.
Yeah, please do, say it again.
The town is in healthy financial position, and their books are in good working order, and we appreciate the help of
All the
Natalie.
finance department,
Yes,
thanks to you.
all the
Okay.
Thank you. We'll open it up to questions from the council.
So I just want to say, when I read the report, I was looking for the gold star or the well done Berlin, because from all your positive opinions, it's really a testament to our financial director and her staff. They've done a great job. It's good and gratifying to see a report like this, that we're in good shape. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council?
And did I hear, I understand that we had come in, we have the S word, is there a surplus?
Well,
Yeah.
we've had a
So
surplus
we're-
in the
and we had
past
last
previous
right.
year. Yep. Now, this one's a little higher because of, as the group mentioned, deferred capital projects, but we'll be working with PKS and our finance department to have a outline of some transfers to be able to keep our unassigned fund balance at about $1 million. We'll keep it a little higher this year because we will have some carry forward capital projects, but
Right, that was one of, also, weren't there probably savings in vacancies as well? That were represented?
well, yes and no, because we did have some overages and overtime in some areas. So I think that there were some unfilled positions, but most of what you see, a lot of what you see is carried forward in capital projects.
Well, this, I think, does bear, I'll just state the number, we went over it, but, so the unassigned balance in 2018 was $21,927, and it's 3.28 million right now. So I think that is something we should all be very proud of. You know, really, this is from FY last fiscal year, so I mean, it's a lot to celebrate, and I'm happy to hear about the possible, consideration of transfers to get that number down a little bit. Because I was a little bit surprised to see that GFOA recommends a fund balance of no less than 2 months, and we're at 5 months. So, and then it was the same with the enterprise funds. So GFOA, very, very
Well, that
conservative.
would be the absolute minimum that you would want to have. Now,
Yeah.
based on your situation and your circumstances, you need to set that minimum at a
Right.
reasonable number, which is probably going to be much higher than that.
Yeah, it seems really
months.
low, 2 months.
Yeah, it would be the absolute minimum you would not want to drop off.
Our internal level, when you look at the stabilization, has a formula assessed with it, and I want to say we're 4 months, isn't it, Natalie?
Forward about,
Yeah, I think that, so our number is higher than the GFOA's, but it's also a delicate balancing act, right? You don't want to have, the citizens don't pay their taxes to have us just put it in a bank account. We need to make sure that we're financially covered and capable of weathering some ups and downs, but we also need to balance that with making
Exactly.
sure we don't put too much of a burden on the ratepayer.
And I think that's interesting. That's a great point. I think the surplus isn't a bad word.
No.
It's viewed sometimes from elected officials' perspectives, we talk to the citizens, well, if you have a surplus, then how come the taxes, why can't you lower the taxes? But I know, so I totally, it's our responsibility to explain the need for it and to realize that it's for emergency funds and future, things like that. So I think it's a great, healthy report and it's something we should all be proud of, and I look forward to transferring some of the unassigned funds when the recommendations come forward.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. I have one more question. This is more for Natalie. In the list of long-term debts, most of the debts we have carry a very, very favorable interest rate. There is one for the spray site, and that matures in 2036. It carries close to an 8.5% interest rate.
no prepayments allowed.
You ask this every year.
I know. I refinance.
You can't. Unfortunately, whoever negotiated that deal,
It's very, very long ago, but
Yeah.
not allowed.
whoever negotiated that deal was not a good deal.
The structure of the debt, unfortunately,
It just
with no
can't be.
refinance and no prepayments allowed till the maturity.
It should be our
Which spray site
red-
is that associated with?
Yeah.
It's, I'm
Liberty
sorry,
Town or New
it's a
York?
spray site,
Yes, it's great.
spray site leak,
5 Mile Branch.
yes.
It's a red flag as to why we should never do that.
I mean, it just popped right out.
It should. It should be a beacon. But thank you all, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, up next is agenda item 2B, which is the red speed camera review. Chief Downing is going to run point on that.
Oh, yes, I would like to hear.
Good evening, everyone.
Chief Downing, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
I have the opportunity to go over the actual speed studies that they conducted in the last couple of months and bring forth where we are. It's more of a status report than anything else. We're ready to move forward with 2 locations. Those 2 locations being Flower Street and Seahawk. Unfortunately, Broad Street was not within the area. West Street Main Street nor William Street captured numbers showing that the speed cameras would be actual effective in those areas. So inside the packet, you actually have the numbers of the studies themselves. And if you have any questions about those numbers or actually how the study itself was done, we can go over that. Since those studies have been done, we've actually made contact with Tim and Electric Department about Flower Street, which is very unique, and we didn't think this. We thought Flower Street closer to the 400 block, but we also have an opportunity to be on Flower Street closer to the schools themselves, at the 1100 block. The road beds are ours, and the property towards the school is, and then, so it would be a situation where you would be in town with a speed camera, out, and then back in again. So
you could get double tickets.
Well,
School drop off.
but Chief Downing, both of those areas on Flower Street actually were identified as higher areas.
Yes.
correct.
Right.
Again, looking at locations, both, we really didn't visualize that. And again, that's something that their studies actually bring out and we did get to see. With that being said, if we do move forward with cameras in those locations, we might even have discussions with the county in reference to the speed limit. What we see is the individuals who are driving in the county part are doing the same thing they're doing in the town. And if they're going 64 miles an hour, maybe we should have a consistent pattern all the way straight through. So those are the things. Go ahead.
Tell me what that means. Are you saying, when you say that, do you mean reducing the county side?
The county is currently 30.
Yeah.
And
we're 25.
we would like to have discussions with doing 25 all the way straight through.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure we were clear on the reduction countywide, not the raise this one, the rise this one.
Oh, we've actually had conversation, we also already know the number of buses going through and the number of bus stops going through that whole stretch. We also know about the sports programs that actually have to play off of that actual roadway that actually leads out to, and we actually had track teams cross country that actually are there, utilize those areas. So we definitely know the concerns of safety in that area with the speeders. So,
Now,
go ahead.
Chief, I think just important for everybody to know, those that are here as well as those watching at home, you can see this data in the packet on page 100, 101, 102, and 103. And those are the results of the speed study that were conducted. So if you want to know kind of what the speed looks like in your neighborhood, if that was actually measured, you're able to see that. And if I'm understanding you correctly, Chief, Flower and Seahawk are the recommendations to move forward, but we can always, once these are implemented, come back and study these locations again at a future date.
That is correct. And even if we see an outliner right now that we say we really want to go ahead and have something here, we can work towards those things. But looking at statistics, we already know that certain areas are going to have to use other means of enforcement. When you look at West Street, and we would think, and we already knew this ourselves because we've had officers there, they were running stop signs. They run stop signs. Speed is not the issue. And when they look at the numbers, none of the numbers even came close to breaking thresholds. But again, there's still issues there, and you still need to have enforcement there, but it has to have to be done in a traditional method.
Chief,
So-
go
ahead.
Can I ask a question about South Main? In the packet there on page, well, I guess it's 103, right?
Mhm.
So South Main had a total of, if I'm reading this correctly, a total of 133 speeders. Is that, if I have those all together?
Yeah.
That's right. So,
You're looking on 103.
yes, and then south,
You're looking at northbound, south.
Yes.
yes,
definitely.
yep,
It's the
sorry.
last segment.
The last one,
Okay.
133. So if that area is not the recommended spot for this in particular, this is obviously an area that you all are aware of already, and we can hone in on that a little bit internally, perhaps?
Correct. And when you look at it, we're talking about thresholds. So the 12-mile-an-hour threshold is not even close to being met. You had the 5 mile over with the 118.
Gotcha.
And if we look at the detailed report, it would actually say 1,000 plus vehicles going through the location. And they'll actually have the times. You don't see that with the other areas.
Thanks.
So again, it's two things. We're talking about volume. And we look at Seahawk, we have volume. So we look at volume, we also look at the speed thresholds.
Now, would your recommendation be to pursue both camera locations on Flower?
Yes, all 6 positions. We're probably going to attempt to define locations where we might be able to use one pole and not have a pole on each side. Tim's going to go ahead and help direct with that because where the electric is going to make that determination. And also who serves the electric. And we're already working through some things with that, as always.
If you want to charge my electric pole, look, you can put one right in front of 518 Flower Street.
I think we could pay for our own electric.
I was just gonna say, because looking at these numbers, and when you're watching me at home, folks, and you see me like football cheering over here, I say this stuff out of my mouth, my neighbors say these things, but when you see these numbers right here, 15 miles over the limit, 105 people over the limit in a 1,000 block of Flower Street. You see 5 miles over the limit, 610 people, 589 people, 5 miles over the limit in a 400 block. I can't even say that enough. This thing right here, this is a win. So thank you.
Now, you had this on as a presentation. Do you need action from us to approve those 3 locations, or?
No, we want consensus, just number one, know that we're moving forward with those locations. If you don't have any issue, we'll sign the forms. There's still going to be some more back-end things that have to be done. Number one, electric. We also have to have some signage that the town's actually obligated. We've already had discussions with Jim and Charles in regards to that. So again, we still have a little bit more time to do some things, and we'll definitely keep you up to date. But we wanted you to know that these are the locations that were reviewed and singled out as problem areas, and to know that we can evaluate other locations at any time. So feel free, but we picked out locations. There may be other locations that we were never even thinking about that come up a little later on.
And I think getting these 3 locations built out, and then going from there, we can restudy some other locations in the future. But any objection to the path presented with the 3 sites?
No.
All right.
Thank you for hearing us.
And
Thank you
Chief,
for
you also have our support, I believe, unanimously to reduce that speed limit the whole way along Flower to 25 miles an hour. So whatever you need from us, let us know.
We'll definitely have to consult you on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, up next is agenda item number 3, which are items for approval. So first, well, before we hit this, just everybody watching at home and here publicly, there is a change to the way that we're going to handle items for approval. We'll go through the item for approval and announce what that is. We'll take any public comment for a period of 2 minutes. We'll have debate or comment from the council if there's any, and then we'll move forward with a motion to approve. So the first item is motion 2023-58, acknowledging the request by the Local Development Council, LDC, to phase out planned use of casino funds for LEOPS. We did hear back from the LDC, and they approve of the wording within this motion. So we'll open it up for public comment regarding motion 2023-58, if there is any. Seeing none, we'll move to debate or comment from the council.
I'll just make the motion.
So it's the same as it was 2 weeks ago.
The only thing that was added was the language referring to the updated multi-year plan and that, which does need your clarification tonight. There was discussion last time about exactly what that intent was, and it was never quite settled.
So right now it reads the request of the local.
Blanks,
Right.
Oh,
the second
Okay, gotcha.
second
Yeah, that is okay.
sentence.
Yeah, that is-
The mayor and council are also committed to submitting an updated multi-year plan by, well, that's already required, is that?
April.
Well, the
Before the
discussion was whether
expiration.
they were requiring it,
This year.
right.
No, we have that already. We have to
Okay.
submit a multi-year, that should honestly be struck.
Okay, it can be
Because-
struck.
It should be, because we have to submit a new multi-year plan for FY '27 forward. There's no need to do that before that period of time.
I was under the impression, sorry, Mary.
No,
Well, did they approve the word, when you said they approved the wording, was this in there? About the
Well, if it was,
updated multi-year?
this
They
is
would've
what,
filled
this is
that.
what they were looking at most recently, yes.
That-
But I think, I mean, the key is the
Planned
intent,
by-
not so much the dates.
by the end of FY '26 for fiscal years 2027, 2029, 2029.
And my question is, why do we have to wait so long?
Because we already have an approved plan
I
through
understand,
26.
but nothing prohibits us from revising it to meet their request.
If we find that we're in a position to do so. Right now,
Well, we
I
can do
don't-
it any time. That's my point. Why not try to work with them and say, let's just make this happen?
we have an approved
I understand we have it.
spending plan. So if we have a change in revenues and we say through this budgeting process, we have an additional X amount of dollars, and the group's like, we would like to allocate that to LEOPS, then all we have to do is send a revised letter to them saying, we are able to meet your request earlier than anticipated. But right now, we have an approved spending plan through FY '26. Do you see what I'm saying? Right now,
I
I mean,
understand it's approved. All I'm saying is, they're asking us
how do you intend to do it? That's what I'm wondering.
to revise our plan. And
The current plan?
resubmit it, yes.
But how do you intend to revise the plan?
To lean down on LEOPS.
With what money? That's what I'm asking.
Well, we have retirement built into our payroll system, so we can put some of that back in to our general fund.
I think the time to look at that is through the budgeting process.
It would be.
Right.
But I'm saying we could make that happen by 2025, 2024 budget.
I mean,
You could change the word submitting to committed to reviewing.
but we do have to
Multi-year
submit,
plan.
but we do have to submit a new
True.
multi-year plan.
But you're committed
for
to
it.
that if you want the money. You don't have to really have a separate motion to state that.
Right. So let's hear the rest of it.
Did, I mean, open it up.
Mayor,
Go ahead.
the meeting, at the meeting, the request was to adopt the language, to adhere to recommendation, to phase out fully funded LEOPS by slots revenues. That all this language is here, that's all we
Right.
adopted. The actual phase out is our internal procedure. We don't have to submit multi-year plan every year.
Correct.
So
I
we
understand.
will decide later on how much we're gonna reduce going forward and what else we're gonna include. But the plan that we have presented to them, been adopted, all they're asking us to adopt additional language to agree with their recommendations.
And if we
And that's
can,
the motion we have in front of us today.
the request is that if we can until FY '26, please do so.
Correct.
But they're also saying that FY '27, they're gonna wanna see that probably.
But they don't wanna see our
Correct.
multi-year every year.
Correct.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
So,
May I just read the minutes from this meeting, and this part, not the whole minutes? Following much discussion and upon a motion by Senator Carrozza, the LDC voted to approve the Berlin multi-year plan for FY '24 to FY '26 as presented, with the caveat that town officials submit a written plan prior to April 1, 2024, that identifies their intention to phase out the use of LIG funds for LEOPS in the future multi-year plan for FY '26 to FY '28. Due to a potential conflict, Ms. Wells abstained from the vote.
and that's what we're doing. with
So
this motion.
to me, I think that second line, the mayor and council are also committed to providing written plans by April 1, 2024.
26.
No.
Well, no, what we're, this motion that they're asking for, with the deadline of committing, or the deadline of submitting our written plan of intent is April 1.
And that's
Not the
what,
multi-year plan, but the plan to,
For fiscal year
Address.
26, 27.
but that's what this is. Motion 2023-58, once acted, will be sent along with our multi-year plan. This will be an attachment to that plan,
But I think that,
acknowledging their request to wean down those funds.
right, but what I'm saying is I really think that the LDC is looking for some sort of date. So if we can add a date of, they're saying in the minutes it was April 1, somewhere into this, I think we would be fine.
Wouldn't that go in the place where it says plan by?
But I think, hold on one
But
second.
there's two things going on. Is
Right,
we're not submitting a new plan.
Correct.
We are submitting our intent to describe how we are slowly having the general fund pay for Liam's.
but Jack, to answer your question, once this is acted on, we will set, if it's acted on at this meeting, the multi-year plan that was adopted by the LDC, along with motion 2023-58 signed and executed, will go to the LDC this week if it's passed, which will be well ahead of the April deadline that they gave us. This puts us within full compliance with what they've asked. Do you see what I'm saying? They've only asked for us to acknowledge their recommendation.
But I think then, but I think, I don't want to belabor this, but I think that they were looking for, because we were at the meeting, they want to see the actual plan by April 1.
Yes.
They have the plan. They passed the plan. They want to see us acknowledge that we heard them say, and that their recommendation is to wean down those costs.
Yeah, but not in 4 more fiscal years, right?
Yes, it is. That is the approved plan.
They did approve our plan at 100%.
Correct.
For
Through
3 years.
2027. At 2028, that's when we have to resubmit.
No, they approved FY '24, '25, and '26. We need a new plan to them for FY '27. And in that, they're going to be expecting us to comply with their recommendation. But this motion this will solve all of their requests by this week that they're asking for April.
So you're suggesting to remove that second line?
Well, either strike it or keep it if Mary's saying that they agreed to it. So then put end of FY '26 is when they're getting a new plan. And it will span once again for 3 fiscal years. The same way this plan does. It would cover 27, 28, and 29.
Now, if I also remember, they have a review every September.
They
Of the
only
existing
review to make sure we're in compliance with the plan we submitted.
That's what I mean. So if
That's
what you're
already
saying
expenditure.
so if what you were saying is incorrect, Saturday,
No,
but if it is,
But it's not done.
okay.
But
Saturday, they have the opportunity, or Saturday, September, they have the opportunity to review it and say that we may need to correct course.
no, they don't. They just say, did you comply or did you not comply?
in
That's it.
September, they review the prior year's
What happened in
expenditures
the
to make
past.
sure they
Correct.
comply with the
Right.
plan and the intent of the bill.
Let's find the middle ground. I don't think this should be unanimous here. And if I don't, if we can or not, I'm going to try. So the mayor and council, that second paragraph, I think, really, let's try to make this unanimous if we can. I'm open to whatever. But the mayor and council are also committed to submitting an updated multi-year plan by the end of the fiscal year 24 for the fiscal years 2027 to 29. What do you think about that?
Too early. Way too early. How are you going to speculate 27, 28, and 29's spending at the end of this fiscal year by June 30th? It'd be very, very hard to do, Steve.
I mean, we're not talking about, like, I'm not viewing 50%, like taking 50% off of the LEOPS, the general fund, you know?
I think it's too early. My recommendation, if you want to do it earlier than 26, do it in 25. But at least then you'll have a year
Mhm.
and a half within the spending plan. I think that's reasonable.
So then, can we take your motion and say end of FY '25?
I think that's reasonable.
Councilman Mayor?
The minute you just read outline the time frame we have to be committed. So if you read this sentence from your minutes again, we have approval through 27.
And what council member, we have approval through 26.
well, end of 26.
Correct, but what Councilmember
Beginning of
Green's saying
27,
is that,
we need to resubmit a new plan.
but Councilmember Green's saying that let's try to get a year and some change of this plan
That
underway.
is our internal budget and procedure. That does not have to be reflected in the motion. This motion has to reflect the agreements to their language or the request and the time frame that outlined in the minutes. We, in our behalf, internally in our budget, can do planning on our own. It doesn't have to go into the
But
motion.
I think the only thing that Councilmember Green's doing, and I think the council's on board with, is trying to get the plan to them a little earlier for transparency purposes, maybe.
But that is correct. You know, frankly, I was there. We all were there. I mean, many of us were there. It was
It was clear they were not
not
happy.
a slam dunk.
They were not
And,
happy.
yeah, so I'm trying to find this ground that we can come to terms, confirming the intent that was expressed, or the order that was expressed to us to, you know, please consider scaling this back. So I'd like to make a motion to approve motion 2023-58, changing that second paragraph. The mayor and council are committed to submitting an updated multi-year plan by the end of fiscal year 25, fiscal years 2027 to 29.
Second.
So I have a motion with the changes for the second paragraph by Councilmember Green, a second by Councilmember Orris. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let the record reflect that motion 2023-58 passes unanimously. Thank you. There we are. And let's see. Up next is item 3B, which is motion 2023-60, stormwater management upgrades phase 2 for Pine, Nelson, and Franklin Avenue, contract adjustments, and town administrator Mary Boland's going to run point.
I'm gonna turn it
Over to Jamie and Darrell.
to Darrell and Jamie.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
If you all, so to bring you a little back history, Pine Street, there's a lot of stuff in the street that we knew about, but they were clearly a little bit deeper than, or shallower than what we anticipated. And we need to change out the material that run down the street. Our goal is to keep the material that we have, we can use it as storage, and we can use it for our grant for when we do another stormwater job in town. And that'll be some of our, we have to do matching grants and grants. So we actually have to change some of the material out to make this work, because we wanted to see CMP pipe, which is, or RCP, which is reinforced concrete pipe, which has a very thick wall, which is more durable, more longer lasting. And since it's a little bit shallow on the street, it would hold up better to traffic. But we have a lot of conflicts on that street. One is there's a gas main, there's a Verizon fiber optics, and if you all want to know anything about fiber optics, they charge thousands per the minute, just about. So to move some of that stuff is very it's not cost effective. So we're asking if we can switch out some of the material to go to a corrugated metal pipe, which still has a very long lasting life expectancy and still keeps the flow design and help alleviate some of the flooding in the area. You know, it's unfortunate we found this, and you know, I've talked with Dara, I've talked with Steve, and I've talked with Neil. We're going to do our due diligence on the future projects and try to budget money ahead to do test pitting. But, you know, the state highway just did a bunch of test pitting on 346 there by one of our lift stations. And to test pit one hole is anywhere between $1,500 and $2,000. So that's stuff we have to figure in our budget. And I know I hate to come back and ask for more money, but these people deserve the best for down in that area. Natalie and Mary, I've been under the weather, I'm sorry, but I've just not felt great. But Mary and Natalie have helped me out a lot, and Darrell's been there to help us, but we just need more money to do the project correct and to get this material ordered so that we're not sitting there with the street messed up for a long time. There's ways we can cut costs of like not tearing out the sidewalks and everything on Pine Street, but Jimmy's a public works director, but Pine Street's one of the worst streets in town. Sidewalk, street, everything. I don't think it's right for us to do all the work in the road, put a nice road bed in there, and then leave broken sidewalks. That's my opinion, but, you know, I'm here to help you all out too. So I would like to move some money around. Natalie's got it in my staff report, so that we can proceed further on with trying to get this project moved. Some of the lead times are like 5 to 6 weeks on the piping, which there's a little bit of work they gotta do between now and then anyway, and they're gonna miss between Christmas and New Year, so we've actually bought like 2 weeks in there that they're gonna be out of work for holidays and all that stuff. So I would like to have your approval to move the 100,000 to help keep this project moving forward.
So the recommendation is to take 50,000 to, instead of doing the AV system here, and the digitizing, it's $50,000 each, is to allocate those funds to this.
Pretty much.
Yeah, Natalie's run a lot of the numbers. I mean, she's the finance lady. I mean, I'm sorry, it's tough with what we run into. I mean, there's stuff that's in the street that, you know.
So let me just, on your staff report here, Jacob, by the way, I hope you feel better. It says, you mentioned the test pitting. If additional funding is needed to complete the project, staff would request to reassign ARPA contingency of $38,000. So you're currently asking for the 50 for the AV, the 50 from digitization of documents. I'm looking at the payment plan, or the ARPA schedule, and I'm going to throw it out here. The Rails and Trails Phase 2 funding, that grant was submitted 6/1 of 2023. So I would assume that the same grant would be submitted 6/1 of 2024.
No,
But
it won't be.
would it be earlier?
We're not
We're not.
resubmitting.
So then,
Those funds will be alleviated and be capable of reappropriation.
well, can we reappropriate the 76 towards this, leaving the 50,000 for the AV? I think the digitization, I understand that's a problem, but I think the AV could be a little more.
I think the AV ultimately, we've explored some other options, and it's probably going to come in significantly less than what we've been looking at.
But we're not going to be looking at the same package.
No, it will not be the same
Right.
kind of thing. We won't have all the meeting management bells and whistles. But, and I apologize, some of this was done very quickly because we just became aware of the problems at the last minute, but we couldn't push it off to the first meeting in January.
Sure.
So some of this has maybe not been fleshed out as thoroughly as we would prefer, but it's still a fair picture of what we're looking at.
So then, Councilmember Orris, maybe a cleaner way would be to stay with the 50 and 50 to alleviate that cash flow, but then keep those items still on the ARPA spending plan, and then reappropriate the rails and trails to the categories that are seen fit, and strike rails and trails. But I think that's probably better to do in January. And what we'll do is we'll work together to come up with a better understanding of what's available still and unassigned within the ARPA.
So do you think when our first meeting in January is, do you think you might have a better, I don't want to hold it up, but.
I would say the first or second, we should not hold this up.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that.
we need to be able to move on this, otherwise we're still talking another 6 weeks out of
Yes.
January 13th. That was our problem.
Well,
But we can reestablish some of the fund balances that you're looking for probably in some of those items.
and AV might be less, might be.
It should be
It
significant.
should be significantly less. What we're looking at now is far less than what we're.
An upgrade from the Pinto.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
But those categories will still exist, so we can reappropriate.
Well, if there are any other questions, I'll go ahead to.
Well, first, let's fill in the blank. You need
Yeah, I'll fill in
100,
the blank.
right?
The blank on the motion, a number of not to exceed.
Not to exceed 100,000.
Yes.
Look, can I ask you?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know that this is late. I mean, we found out Friday, but we do have some on Franklin. I'm sorry about the 38,000. Am I right, Darrell?
There is an asterisk paragraph at the very end. that
Yeah, that's,
says more
I had
additional.
read that about, you would ask for additional.
Yes, because I mean, they're, you know, it's,
Unknowns.
It's
Can we start with the 100 and come back for the 38 if
We
needed?
have to start with 100 to
Right.
continue on the project as to order the material,
Right.
et cetera, to continue on, we need to reallocate and have funding. After Jamie will figure it out what exactly is going on over there,
Right.
we will come back for potentially reallocating more funds. This project has to continue and go on.
a much
Yeah, I
clearer
know.
picture of what the overall project's gonna end up.
And I'm not here to blame nobody, but we were working on this and setting up for the Christmas parade, and,
Yeah.
I mean, it
It's a
was,
busy
last week was
Thursday.
very hectic, and I'm sorry that if it wasn't more explained out and stuff, so, but I
It's
appreciate it.
okay, let's start with 100. If we need to come back and revisit, we can. We'll take a motion from, well, actually, open it up for public comment. Any public comment? Seeing none, move to debate or comment from the council.
I'll make a motion that we,
Didn't ask for public comment, I made the error. So, And now we'll take any motion to pass.
I'll make a motion that we approve 2023-60 with the funding allocation not to exceed 100,000.
So a motion by Councilmember Orris, a second by Councilmember Nur. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, let the record reflect the motion 2023-60 for the stormwater management upgrades to Phase 2 not to exceed 100,000 passed unanimously. Thank you both.
Excuse me, can I ask Jamie a question on that?
Then let him go home.
Okay, just, I noticed in that area, Nelson and Pine, there's gravel in the storm drains, right?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you explain that?
That is part of our ENS, what we have to submit to MDE. If that's not in place, then we will be getting in trouble and fined. We were down here multiple times yesterday checking. I think a lot of the rain happened after everybody went to sleep. But we did have to move a little bit up to get the street drained. But we did have people, I didn't really come down, but there's a couple of people who live in the area text me and was like, so we had people come in early this morning, make sure the street was clear and stuff like that. But it's all mostly, a lot of the stuff you see down there where the storm drains are covered up, that is MDE's, that is our ENS plan for MDE, and if it's not in place, then there's fines involved, and there could be levied down to which would be to come back to us because the contractor's working for us.
Yeah, that was the problem we had
Thank you.
on Maple Avenue. Well, until they had the apartment complex completed.
We appreciate it. Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Darrell. You both can go.
Feel better,
We
Dan.
appreciate it. Yes, please feel better. Up next is agenda item number 4, discussion, fire company request to reallocate FY23 ARPA funds for capital expenses. The fire company, just in full transparency, Mary and I talked with President David Fitzgerald. They have one meeting in December as well, so they have to be at that meeting also. So they are not here, but their request does stand. Previously, you'll remember that we did allocate up to $220,000 of ARPA funds for the use of capital. Mainly, we arrived at the $220,000 because that was the request for self-contained breathing apparatus. The fire company did receive the FEMA Assistance for Firefighters Grant, AFG grant, for SCBA, and the town of Berlin also wrote a letter of support passed by this council for that grant. They have funds available to be able to cover the costs of the SCBA that are in addition to the FEMA Assistance for Firefighters Grant, and they're asking to reappropriate the remaining funds of the $220,000 for their capital equipment that they've purchased to pay for principal and interest.
What's the remaining balance?
Of,
136,000.
correct, it's in the last paragraph, it says $136,980.82.
I just wanted it to be said out loud, that's all.
Now, I've said this to the group in an email, and I stand by that recommendation, that I think that we should hold off on acting on this request, not indefinitely, but until we hear back regarding the FY25 contract amounts, which we should be able to hear back in January. So tentative approval for sometime in January or early February for this equipment.
But isn't this 220,000 in the contract this year?
Well, the contract, I don't have it in front of me.
I do.
Dave Gaskell does.
It was paragraph 4 of section 2 states as follows. American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funds have been designated and reserved for fire and rescue capital items in the amount of $220,000 in fiscal year 2023, which will carry over to fiscal year 2024. ARPA funds of $83,039.18 will be distributed to BFC by July 30th, 2023 for a one-time payment for BFC fiscal year 2024 operating expenses. Remaining fund, this is the key here, remaining funds shall be released upon approval of qualifying projects submitted by BFC and approved by the mayor and council.
Which, just to clarify, the 80, what was the number? Go ahead.
$83,039.18.
That has been released to the fire company, and they have those funds.
Yeah, they use it.
Is it 39 or 19? It's $20, not much to,
It's $83,039.18.
the letter states 19, just for clarity.
The final sentence is, it is understood by both parties, the BFC may need to request additional funds for consideration of the mayor and council to replace self-contained breathing apparatus based on the results of a pending grant application.
So the only recommendation that I have for the group is to just keep this on our radar, put it on the agenda for sometime in January or February, depending on when we get the final numbers for FY25. But we can only discuss that here as a group.
I don't know, I hate to hold these funds hostage.
We're not holding anything hostage.
Well, you're making them wait. I mean,
We also
they
didn't,
purchased this ambulance and so.
it's not an ambulance. They purchased 2 fire trucks.
Fire trucks, it's a lot of money. And like the letter states, it would help them reduce the principal for 1 year. I'd like to see us reduce it, or release it now, and with the caveat that it goes towards principal, not interest in principal.
The only challenge with that, one, we never agreed as a signatory to the debt.
Right, I know.
2, if that's a route that the council wishes to take, we need to explore how we establish understanding about the use of equipment that's being funded with town dollars, whether that's ambulances, whether that's fire trucks. We need to have something in place, an MOU or something, that makes sure that the capital equipment can be used for fire suppression or EMS response in the town of Berlin. I don't think it's smart to release it just yet.
So David, it's according to the contract. You don't feel like we're in violation of the contract if we don't release these funds?
No,
I
because,
just wanna make sure.
you're going to release the funds to them this fiscal year.
And they can, the other point is that this is not, we have to administer this grant. The federal government gave the grant to the town of Berlin, not to the fire company. We have to make sure that it meets the requirements and meets the thresholds that we see as needed for the town of Berlin. And we're not saying, I want to be clear that we're not saying not to approve. We're saying that we need to get a better picture of the year ahead. I think I can tell you what we're working on at the staff level is a funding formula that mimics something that the county has. So maybe we establish a capital fund plan, and that is clearly articulated. Right now, at $136,000, we don't know if that covers 1 year, 3 years of our capital plan for them, or what that is. So
does a copy of the canceled check and receipt from the loan vendor, would that be a qualifying
what do you mean?
reporting mechanism to the grant?
It would show that you spent it on capital.
That, yeah.
Well, we're not saying that it's not compliant, not a compliant request.
No, but I don't want to put us on the hook either. If it goes and we have to report on the grant, I want to make sure we have what we need from them to report accurately to them.
Right, and the other point is that things have to be received, and we have to verify that things are received by the end of calendar year 2026. As part of the, just so that everybody's aware, that is a requirement of the town of Berlin.
I don't know, we seem to have this rocky relationship with the fire company, and I think we need to put our best effort forth to improve this relationship. And I think this would help.
So my question to you is, you don't feel that we put our best effort forth by putting the $220,000 in play in the first place?
I think we did, yeah.
Yeah.
But again, that relationship is still rocky. We seem to have this, he said, she said, you're not providing enough. It's out there in public, and I think we need to work on improving this relationship.
But it's also not true.
It may or may not be true, but it's out there.
Well, I mean, we know what the FY25 fire request is going to be because he said it here multiple times. And this substantiates part of their $150,000 for capital. I'm having a hard time putting this off. I don't see the rationale.
Well, I've made my 2 points
Yes.
clear, and I think that if you're gonna release it, you gotta have an MOU in place. And if you're not gonna release it just yet, I'd say make sure you get your FY25 numbers first, would be my recommendation. But
You mean the budget, the request that we know is coming?
yeah, because we always get it at the very end. And we never have a clear picture until the nth hour as to what we're appropriating. Every year we make the request early. We want it early. We want to know the costs. We want to be upfront and transparent. The same thing they're asking of us, we're asking of them.
Right.
And if everything cuts out, hey, $136,980 with an MOU in place, by all means, I support it.
Are we
But let's
still-
figure out where we're at first,
Are we still planning to meet with these gentlemen next week?
next week. Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Steve, but, Councilmember Green, but in my mind, I want to have a conversation, and if the conversation is happening next week, that's why I would say, and I don't feel, I hear what you say, Councilmember, Nur, I was gonna call you Jay, sorry, Nur, in regards to the perception of a rocky relationship. I feel that throwing money at the rocky relationship doesn't necessarily fix it. You know what I mean? I feel that we need to be in the same place and work this out, and then if this is, you know what I'm saying? It's because I don't feel like we did anything to create a rockiness in this regard. Like the $220,000 was already there. And it was going to be allocated to do whatever, then they got the funding to cover it, and that was what it said in the contract, correct?
Right.
And if it didn't happen, it did happen. I mean, everybody should be high-fiving right now because it happened, right? And the funds are still here. I still think when the funds are here, now we need to have a conversation. I don't think it should be, this is me talking, and maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think it should be, yeah, we got the funds, this is what's left, and this is how we want to use it, and it be point blank period, and just sign the check. I think that there needs to be a conversation. And because the conversation is scheduled for next week, not next month, that's why I would say, put a pin in this, because we're talking next week.
Right, but the conversation has always been, to be used for capital. They wouldn't let us, they were very forthcoming with the fact that they might get a grant for the breathing apparatuses, and that we would reallocate that money for another capital use. We've said that all along.
And we're not
So now-
saying we're not.
I know, but now we're saying, well, but now we have to wait till.
Well, not even just that, because I think one of my questions for the meeting that we were planning to discuss is, I know we've already talked about, and it came up before, like, and this may sound tedious, the location of fire equipment during town functions. So if that's something that we plan on sitting here and discussing next week, if part of this could be used to help alleviate some of that problem next week, I would want to spend this today before we talked about,
That's EMS.
or whomever.
But this is
I'm
capital
sorry.
that can be reallocated by
Between
this
the two.
organization, by our group. So the other thing is that I think it's important to note that, one, we were on the forefront of applying ARPA funds to fire and EMS services. We went above and beyond, just so that everybody's aware. We went above and beyond the obligation of the town of Berlin to fund 1.5 of their heart monitors, to cover the full transmission device needed to transmit 12 leads for all 3 devices. We've been very forward on that. We've got the $45,000 in for ambulance replacement through another mechanism. We have $220,000 wasn't pulled out of thin air as a good, sound good number. This was the number that they said they needed for breathing apparatus. That's how we got there. So now they're saying that they're there, and we're just saying, let's to Councilmember Nichols' point, let's have a conversation.
Let's work together. I mean, I'm not telling them not to spend the money. I'm not saying they can't pay their bill that they have. But what I'm saying is, wait a minute, there are other things too, right? That we've already talked about or that we know is going to come up. Can we talk about those before we move with quote unquote haste, for lack of a better term, and signing all of those funds off to one other item? That's my only thing. Especially because we're just meeting next week. If it were next month, I would say, well, maybe we should move faster.
But we can't. We can't act on it until next month. Like, we can meet next week, but we have to,
For sure.
we have to act in January.
But we don't have to act in January. We put in the contract that we would make a good faith effort through this fiscal year, which extends all the way to June 30th.
So Mayor, please recap your proposal is not, I thought you were saying to use these remaining dollars to meet the request that we know that is coming in FY '25.
I just say that we need a clear picture of what we're looking at for '25. This year, we reallocated $83,000. Hopefully, we don't have to do that this fiscal year. Hopefully, we're able to take $136,000 and apply it to capital, whether it's a capital charge that we all agree on for a funding formula that extends 1 year, 3 years, a year and a half, whatever that is. But right now, just cutting the check without having a clear, the goal of these meetings, just so everybody's clear, the quarterly meetings, the goal was to develop a formula. We've been working internally to take the county's formula and develop that so that it's a clear formula for the town of Berlin, so that we can look at a previous 12-month period of calls and have a clear understanding of what our funding level will be in January for the next fiscal year. It's good financial practice.
Oh, I think that's.
That is the goal. But to release this funding right now, without a clear picture of what next year even looks like, 6 months away, I don't think it's a smart move. And we've asked every time for the number in January. If we can get that, if we can firm it up and have a good conversation, along with the development of the formula, yeah, release the 136, I'm game.
Well, they did give us, we know the numbers. They gave us the numbers at the last work session.
Yes, we know the numbers, but there's no agreed upon formula. There's no
Right, we
agreed
agree with
upon
that.
plan. And before this is released, no matter what it's for, if it's for capital equipment, which is what it says, we need to have an MOU in place. Those heart monitors don't span 30 years or 20 years. This apparatus will.
I 100% support the formula. I think that's tremendous, that's fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers who can justify exactly what the dollars are. So I applaud that effort. I think that's going to be a great thing for the town of Berlin and for the fire company, frankly. We are meeting next week. This is a discussion item tonight, correct? So we weren't going to be, there was not going to be a motion tonight?
Well, because they made the request, I made everybody aware of it via email, but we hadn't had a chance to discuss it publicly. We've not even discussed it privately, but you all have been aware of the request. This is just a mechanism of saying, hey, look, are you on board with putting the pause button on it with them for just a little bit?
I'm not on board with, I could put the pause button until next week.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
but you
Yeah.
can't act on it next week either. So-
It's still next month.
Right. Yeah.
But that's still within the confines of the contract. And does that, as far as their time frame, what does that mean as far as their time frame? If we have this discussion tomorrow and act on this in our first January meeting, January 13th or thereabout, how does that adversely affect anybody or?
Well, their request, well, but hold on.
The December timeframe is based on their timeframe, to be fair.
And the other thing is that if you look at one of the last lines, it says the payment will reduce approximately 1 year of, or well, approximately $10,000 of interest charges. But keep in mind, they entered into the acquisition of that equipment knowing what their principal and interest payments were. If we can help them along the way, by all means, I want us to help them. But we're not bound by their saving $10,000 in interest to make a quick decision.
I understand. I do agree with Councilman Nur that there is friction, and I know it's not that we want to, I'm not saying it's anyone's fault. I just believe that there is friction between the town of Berlin and the fire company. They are a vendor, but I'm fine with pausing this until the 20th and discussing it with them. I think that the last work session was a productive, casual setting. So that's, you know, I'm fine with that. I know that we'll push it, like you said, to the next calendar year. I'm okay with that. Understand that it will still reduce their, you know, the term of their loan, right, by next month, and still reduce the term of the loan. I just would like to see us, I think we're trying to show, I think we want to improve this relationship, and that's really what's going on here. So that's really what I said.
So we're okay shelving it until our meeting and then revisiting it the,
No, I mean, I don't do, no, I agree with I agree with Councilmember Nur. I mean, I think that holding this is just kicking the can down the road. I don't see any reason, when we said it was 220 for capital, we helped them out with the 83,000 for operating. It's in the contract for the 220. I think that, I do not believe that we should pause this.
okay?
The reality is if either you or I make a motion, it would be a split vote, the mayor would have to,
Dang, I get to vote?
you would get to vote.
Today
Well-
you would.
No, talk to me again. So tell me some more.
I was going to
Tell me
say,
some more,
you're not
Jim.
assuming votes.
No, because, yeah,
You all are going to
I'm
spend
saying-
$136,000 on capital equipment that you have no interest in?
so tell me about the MOU. What is it
You need
have
to
in mind?
solidify the interest of the town of Berlin. So if you write a $136,980 check, you want to make sure that equipment stays in the town of Berlin to be able to serve in fire suppression for the town. Even if you don't come up with a contract that's valid, what's to say that that equipment can't be used somewhere else, for something else?
So you're saying that the fire truck couldn't service a fire at Grace Corner Road?
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that what happens if we don't come to terms on an agreement for FY '25?
And we're right back where we were last year.
And you funded equipment that can be taken somewhere else?
And their attorney says to us, they won't provide service to this town. Isn't
I'm
that what
not,
happened last year?
but we're not saying that that's the case. Let's just be
Yeah.
clear.
I'm just-
Yeah.
But I'm saying you all are going to cut a check without any clear interest for the town of Berlin? It doesn't make any sense. At least if you want to cut it, establish an MOU. Give David Gaskell until the first of the year to draw it up. But,
We give it a little more time.
so,
Just got to talk to the other side first.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, you need to, you can't just cut it. Like, an individual air pack, yeah, sure, you don't need to enter into an agreement on. But
That's a bit of a stretch.
you're talking about
Just think
$2.5 million in capital
They would go
equipment.
sell that equipment.
I never suggested that. I'm just saying it's not a good practice. That's all I'm saying. You're gonna cut a $136,000 check without a clear MOU. Makes no sense.
So Mayor, just think of a priority. So you have assigned ARPA initially for capital projects and you assign a purpose and a priority to fund the capital. Right now, the priority is shifted completely. First, we're releasing for operational purposes. Now we're releasing to complete a debt, which in my eyes, is a very good debt. If they're only saving $10,000 per year, that means interest is very low. And I'm not speculating on that matter. But I think we're speaking of priorities. We're looking at our water and sewer department, we're scratching ARPA covering the emergencies. I don't consider that as an emergency, I'm sorry.
I
So
think
the
that-
discussion of what the purpose of reallocating this ARPA for capital purposes, as you established initially, should happen first.
I think there should be a conversation. I know that a conversation is gonna happen at an off week where we can't make a decision until January, but I don't feel that that decision tonight versus January 13th is, or 8th, even better, is, is, for lack of a better term, life altering. I don't think it is. I think a conversation. I didn't say MOU, but if an MOU comes up during the conversation next week, then let it be on the table. But I still think we need to have a conversation. And it's not holding anything hostage, it's making it clear on all fronts. That's how I see it.
I would think, and this is just my opinion, their request is in keeping with the spirit of the MOU, that it's being, they're asking to expend it for capital purposes. But your request to make that a little firmer is also perfectly reasonable within the MOU. I think that the December date they're feeling the pressure because the December date pushes them a little further ahead in paying that debt off.
Which
That's
we understand.
understandable.
Yeah, we
That's
understand that.
understandable. But I don't feel it needs to sort of artificially inflate your urgency in the matter. I think you should work toward an MOU regarding the capital project. I don't know what that MOU would say off the top of my head, but it's not unreasonable.
I think for our meeting, it should be a determination of how long this 136,980 covers us for capital. For whether we're talking a year, whether we're talking 3, whether we're talking 5 years of capital payments. And I think that an MOU does need to be in place. Those will be my recommendations during our meeting. All right, it's a discussion item. If there's nothing further, then we'll move on. If there is something, then go ahead. All right. Up next is agenda item number 5, PJM Quarterly Report, Electric Utility Director Tim Lawrence.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Since we're a member of PJM, I'm required to give this quarterly report in a public setting to Mayor and Council. This is for the months of July, August, and September 2023. The total energy sold for the town of Berlin was 12,516,394 kWh. American Municipal Power Bill for that time period was $446,902. PJM charges were $472,183. PJM ARR credit, that's a credit of $59,358,000. Fuel, lube, and other costs for the power plant was $185,647. Total power cost was $1,045,373. Cost per kWh sold was 0.08352. And the anticipated credit from for July 1st, 2023 through May 31st, 2024, which is an ARR allocation. We're looking at about $235,656.46.
Thank you. Any questions for Tim? All right, up next. Thank you, Tim. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Up next are the town administrator's report and departmentals.
Just a couple of quick things. The demolition grant RFP is moving right along. We have a pre-bid meeting Wednesday, positive all the time, and the bid opening is scheduled for January 3rd. So that is continuing to advance. We attended the Maryland Public Service Commission last Monday. It was 5 hours of travel for a 15-minute hearing, in which everybody's testimony was stipulated to, so that was fun. But it's always interesting just to see what the process is. And essentially, at the end of the day, their result, though this is not final yet, the result was that the town is doing everything right, similar to the audit. Reminder that the town hall will be closed this Thursday, the 14th, from 12:30 to 1:30 for our staff luncheon. And the most town offices will be closed Monday and Tuesday, the 25th and 26th, for the Christmas holiday. And I will be on vacation next week.
Thank you. Any questions for Mary or any of the departmental reports? All right, up next, comments from the public. Do we have any? Go ahead. Just name and street name, if you don't mind.
Mary Hedlowski, Westminster Drive. Just want to wish you all happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. And I know we always don't agree, but thank you for what you guys do. I know you sit up here and pull your hair out trying to figure this stuff out, but thank you, it was appreciated.
Thank you, and thank you for volunteering to assist with the Christmas parade as well. We appreciate it. All right, any other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to comments from the council, starting with Vice President Pro Tem, Councilmember Nichols.
Now,
Yeah, you all made it difficult.
you say PPP?
VPBT, right?
I just want to say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, all of those great things this holiday season. Mr. Burrell out there in TV land, heal well. This chair misses you greatly.
Thank you. Councilmember Nur?
Yes, I'll ditto those sentiments. Merry Christmas to everyone. One issue I wanted to bring up was the issue of parking. We all know we have a severe parking issue in Berlin. I was up there Saturday. We didn't have an event going on, but people were driving in circles just trying to find an event. It was crazy. And that happens all the time. It's ongoing. I think we need to have a conversation about how we could provide additional parking, whether we purchase property, lease property, whatever that discussion where it takes us, we need to have it. There is an opportunity to lease some parking that I talked to you about previously, Mr. Mayor. That opportunity still exists, so I think we need to explore it. That opportunity would provide anywhere from 100 to 150 spaces, which is definitely needed in this town, and it's close by.
You're looking like you want more info.
I mean, I do, but I mean, if you don't want to share.
Like I said, the lots,
I think it's best to, do we,
Hold.
is this a conversation for executive session at some point in time?
If it's real property, if it's potentially real property acquisition, it could be, yes.
It could.
Yeah.
right.
I think Councilman Nur raises great points. I think we're capping, I'm sorry, I'm jumping on your time.
No, I was just going to say, we definitely need to set a date in the very near future where we can have this conversation.
We've not had a formal, I would like to see a formal letter outlining what we're actually discussing. That's important for us to have an executive session.
Yeah, I think
We need to have
needs to be
something,
specific.
it can't just be
General.
broad out of left field. So if I know what you're talking about, Councilmember Green knows what you're talking about. Councilmember Burrell and I were both council members when we shot down the idea originally, so we're fully aware. So send a letter, get whoever the interested party is to send a letter to the mayor's office and reference the council.
But also the conversation is bigger than just that one spot.
Well, it can't be like that. If it's bigger,
I mean,
then.
bigger in the terms of, we also need to look at other places.
But that's.
If it's bigger and general,
Right.
it can't be done.
It needs to be done in open session.
Correct, so.
But if there's a request by a party to explore something specific, we need that in writing.
Gotcha.
And then we can take that to the executive session.
Okay,
But,
it's just time to start.
well, it's okay to re-explore, yes. Anything else?
Yep.
All right, Councilmember Warst?
Yes, just real quick, actually. I am just want to wish everyone, I say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Happy, safe, healthy New Year to everyone, and thanks to everyone for all that they do for the town, and thank you to the residents for letting us be up here and serve y'all. So happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Councilmember Green?
Yes, please, thank you. I wanted to recognize Jimmy Charles over there, Sienna Charles.
He's wearing the red vest, you
Yeah.
can't miss him.
He went above and beyond with our parade float, and I'm going to also send a big thank you to my wife Pam, who worked with him hand in hand on creating that float. A few of us were there a couple nights before, but I think it was a great representation of the town. We had the most bedazzled dump truck in any parade. I'm going to say that. Yeah. It was awesome. I think it was great, and I really appreciate your efforts. That was, I think it was, again, a great representation for the mayor and council, and glad we were there to represent our town. And then just piggybacking on Councilman Nur's point, I've been talking to a lot of town merchants lately. You can't help but when you're out and about, and parking. Again, it always comes back to parking, and I feel like our parking dearth is creating a cap for our businesses. They are, if you talk to them, not exactly, this hasn't been the best year. The fall was rough because of weather and cancellation of events. I just think it's incumbent upon us to, first off, hear concerns and try to address them. If we know that parking is a major problem in the town of Berlin, which it is, providing some sort of other options would be a great idea. And I'm talking about, employees parking on Main Street and walking into the store. We've got to figure out a way. Those are prime spots. I saw a contractor that's working in the building parallel parking on Main Street today. That is not helping our people. And the message, whether it's through acquisition or leasing, I know all these terms need to be discussed, and I'm very curious to see what this council has to say. It is time to re-explore it, I think. A similar proposal was brought forward many years ago. Well, it's a totally different council now. And, I do think that there are some options that we could consider. I wanted to bring it up tonight with the legislators. The town of Ocean City has a food tax, and I know, I believe we talked about it a little bit on the budget work session. But there is an opportunity for perhaps the people who come to enjoy our town to help us address a problem. And there are specific rules to a food tax, and it needs to go towards a debt or a property acquisition, capital improvement type of thing. But I think it's something for us to consider. So I would really welcome I will work with the interested party to get a letter so we can at least have this conversation in executive session, get the pulse of this council. There were, like you said, a couple of members were here before, and the terms are, it's going to come down to a decision. How big of an issue do we see it as? And can we get creative enough? Can we find a new source where we maybe have the chamber do some sort of sublease where they charged on main events to help offset some of the costs for some of these potential hypothetical property that I'm referring to? I just think it is worth the time. I appreciate the guidance on the letters, what it needs to have an executive session discussion about it before we bring it public. I would welcome that opportunity.
May I just ask, are we still looking at the possibility of, a parking impact fee? Is that still on the?
It's still in,
Okay.
yeah.
So I think we'll switch over to comments from the mayor. But just to stay on the parking thing, when I spoke with Councilmember Nur and Councilmember Green, just so it's all on the record, I wasn't a no. I was, how are we going to pay for it? And as a council member, when I voted no to that potential agreement, it was because there was no pathway to pay for it. And if there's an appetite to do this, then there needs to be a way to fund it. And it can't just be on the citizens with the tax increase. So we need to look at some ways constructively, discuss the potential options that are available, but we got to have a clear pathway for paying for it, which is what was missing before.
Agreed.
So I'm open to those discussions as well. Steve, I want to say thank you as chief designer of our parade float. You and Pam did a phenomenal job from inception idea to inception, along with the help of Public Works and Jimmy Charles. The only thing we were missing, Jimmy and I talked about that for future years, we will have our town departments featured on our float entries. So we didn't have the turnaround time to be able to do that this go around, but a way to represent our various departments as well. I want to give Sam a shout out, our steady driver of the dump truck. He did a fabulous job.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did good.
It was great walking beside Sam as he drove the dump truck. It looked very steady from my view.
Harnesses.
So all of you need to learn to hold on better.
Well, all's well done, and
I'm glad.
Okay, so, all right. Additionally, I want to thank everybody that helped make the 52nd annual Christmas Parade a really a success for the town of Berlin, from our staff to our volunteers to the folks that entered the parade, and then all of our citizens and visitors that came out to see that. It was really nice to see the spirit of the holidays alive.
And the trophies were beautiful.
The trophies were phenomenal. So I think probably the best trophies we've ever had. Thank you to Jeff Oxford and Oxford Design. So looking forward for this week, Thursday, we have the lighting of the menorah, the first one here in Berlin. With that, it'll be the last day of Hanukkah, Sarah,
Yep.
is that correct?
Yep.
And then, so all the candles will be lit.
At
So it should be
Berlin at 5:30.
in Berlin. Yep, at the in Berlin, 5:30 p.m. This is our last meeting of the month, last meeting of the year, so thank you all. We will not be meeting the fourth Monday. If you come here, we will not be here. The doors will not be open. It is Christmas Eve, I think, right?
Christmas
Christmas
Day.
Day, okay. And then lastly, happy holidays to everyone and happy and safe New Year. Now,
Well,
go ahead.
I'm not trying to interrupt.
Nope, that's my thunder. Go ahead.
I was going to just add about the energy systems.
Go ahead,
Before I forget.
Go.
Speaking of holidays and the tradition, Town of Berlin established Energy Assistance Fund 10 years ago. It's been successful. Last year, we have received $4,500 in donations from the citizens of Town of Berlin. The town matches dollar for dollar, so we have contributed $9,000 towards the lower income energy assistance. It goes towards the electric bills to assist with people to pay the electricity for lower income families. We are changing a little bit the approach this year. Instead of mailing the letters and envelopes to each household, we will upload the letter on the website and we will place a sticker on the utility bill so people can access the actual coupon or voucher or letter, whatever you want to call it, from the website and then mail it to the town hall. The funds are deposited in a separate account in Bank of Ocean City. They're totally secure and confidential, no information released, and then we will match again for fiscal 24 for the amount will be collected. So I just want you to spread the information, ask everybody to donate because it goes to the good cause, and the letter will be available on the website.
Thank you. Councilmember Nichols, you're up. You're sitting in the chair. Oh, actually, hold on. Comments from the press. My apologies. Okay, seeing none. Chief Downing, you want to work for a newspaper?
They're in the tree.
Okay, all right, good.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
So,
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, you do.
yeah.
Warm that hand up.